we are a good barometer for that, and we're watching these lines like a hawk. You know, I looked at the kilos out of Asia last night, and I can emphatically say they were 2 or 3% better than Tuesday last week. And Tuesday last week was 7 or 8% better than the Tuesday before. And I don't mind sharing that, because that talks to this sort of staircase of trade recovery out of China or out of Asia. Europe still remains quite strong and was very resilient all of last year. And Africa and South America and other parts of the world were actually, you know, in growth for much of last year, and even in that sort of situation at the beginning of this year. So it talks a little bit maybe to the mercurial nature of trade, in the sense that, you know, when one door closes, another one opens, and the sort of I have, you want, I have nature of trade is still there, and people need to find their component parts from somewhere. So, you know, I don't think we're out of the woods yet. The indicator I'm really looking forward to is the last week or 10 days of March. You know, this global quarter-end phenomena that was alive and well before the pandemic, was skewed by the pandemic because everything was rocketing through the roof, is something that we're really looking out for. And given that China's now back up and running, I would expect to see that coming in the following days, and maybe the Tuesday night outbound kilos from Asia that, you know, I mentioned very specifically there as an indicator that that is happening. So cautiously optimistic. We all know, as I heard the phrase the other day, what happens in China doesn't stay in China. So we know that China's opened up. We know that China is letting in tourist visas, which in itself helps the level of the global connectedness index, because that talks to people traveling. But rather more selfishly, from a trade point of view, as China gets going, and they've emphatically said they want to and they need to, that then creates a lot of momentum and energy and movement. And I've always said with interviews with yourself, Dan, and others, that trade, business heals. You know, trade is very self-resuscitating. People want to get back to doing what they do best, and that's what I'm sensing a little bit now. We've had 12 months of U-shape, 9 months of U-shape, depending on where you really start it from. I look back actually at the global financial crisis data in 2007, 2008. It was sort of a 15-month shallow U. And I think here we're much more between a bit of a sort of U and a V, not a V, but the V was the very beginning of the pandemic, where we had one bad month, and then trade, you know, really went through the roof, and driven a lot by B2C, as your listeners would know and recognize.